welcoming a trailblazer, visionary, who adds the diversity and innovation of Temple Grandin.
Really close to your mouth.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah, I guess I have to eat it. I want to first of all thank really good teachers I had. Very, very good teachers. Starting with a speech teacher, elementary school teachers. And then I had a science teacher who got me interested in science, got me interested in studies, by giving me interesting classes. I was definitely one of those kids that was different. Now, when I started out in the cattle industry back in the 1970s, I'll tell you, being a woman was much bigger there than autism was. Autism was a non-issue. And learning that most of the problems was with hormones, middle management. That's where most of the problems were. And I've seen a movie where they put full testicles on my vehicle. That actually happened. But one of the things I was good at doing was seeing doors of opportunity. There's a scene in that movie where I get the editor's card, because I knew if I wrote for the magazine, that would help my career. And women were much more accepted in journalism. So I started writing for the Arizona Farm Rancher magazine. And one thing I worked on was making myself really good at it. That when I covered a meeting, I summarized the talks accurately. I worked really hard to be good at what I did. Can't emphasize that enough. But I also had the guts to go up and talk to the editor and get the card. And that goes back to some of my 1950s social training. When I was 7 and 8 years old, we had to dress up in our good clothes at parties and greet guests and take their coats. So I learned how to talk to people. I sold candy for charity. Those were some good skills to learn. But making myself good at it. Also, a lot of people thought I was stupid because I was not able to do higher math. So I majored in psychology. And we'll talk a little bit later on how we need those people that aren't very good at math because they have a different kind of thinking. So I started out writing for the magazine. I also covered livestock shows. And one of the places that can be very dangerous for somebody on the spectrum is when a boss changes. I've been working for the magazine for about 3 years, and then the magazine gets sold. And a new boss, he thought it was weird. And Susie, who did the advertising, I think she was autistic, said, Jim doesn't like you. We're going to need to get a big portfolio together of all of the articles we've written. And then he gave me a raise. I learned how to sell my work rather than myself. That's the way I sold lifetime jobs. I showed off a portfolio of my work. And I'm very happy that in the HBO movie, they showed my projects. The projects are accurate in the movie. I'm really happy about that. And there were people in the livestock industry who were helpful. They were not the foremen, they were the owners of the places. They were supportive. Also, I got along just fine with the people working with the cattle. And when I got my first kind of breakthrough job, I had the confidence to take the job. I remember when Gary Oden of the McLean Cattle Company came up to me, would have been early 70s, asked me to design a pit bag for him. And I said, give me 3 weeks. You gotta remember, this is pre-internet. Remember that. Because I knew how to design the cattle handling part, but I had no idea how to reinforce concrete. You better believe it. I got on the phone the next day, called up people that could send me the visual drawings for the reinforced concrete. So that's a situation where I asked for help. I took the job, asked for help. And a big problem I'm seeing today with a lot of students, is when they get into trouble with their class, they do not ask for help. I had to be tutored in statistics in every grade. I had to be tutored. I had to take one math class, had to be tutored. But I asked for help right when I had the first sign of a problem. Students are not doing that today. Now, another toward opportunity was shown in the movie where I meet they had a meeting the wife of the plant manager. It actually was the wife of their insurance agent. But it was a chance meeting, and she liked my hand-embroidered shirt. So I made my own kind of self-made internship at the Swift plant. Again, doors to opportunity. Well, now people are applying for jobs. All of this internet stuff, you know what, forget it. The back door is still there. You need to use it. And then I wanted to get a PhD, so how did I do that? Called up a good friend of mine, Bernie Collin. He was the ethics professor at Colorado State. And he arranged it so I could do a seminar. And then I just started out quarter time. And eventually got to half time again. Went right up to the back door. But I also picked up that phone and I made the call. Then as I was working on getting my design business going, there was a contractor named Jim Poole who seeked me out to design jobs for him. We did jobs together for almost 10 years. I can't emphasize how certain important people were really helpful. Really important. I want to thank those people. And when I decided to switch from psychology major to animal science, there was a professor named Phillips. Water right there. But I always kept my eye on the goal. My goal was to design good cattle handling results, not get in a fight with my manager or some other thing. I call that Project Oil. Now there's a lot more understanding right now about autism, but to me the project came first. Get the system built, get it working. Now, another thing I want to talk about is different kinds of thinking. I've been doing a lot of talking on that. I have a book called Visual Thinking. We were supposed to have a bookseller here today, but unfortunately the speaker agency gave me a wrong number to call here. We called and called and called and called. So I've got a few brochures. The speaker agency does a really good job getting me speeches, but not do a very good job. Give me the phone number for the people who are running the event. And Teresa called that number like 8 times and nobody answered. But I'm very concerned right now about losing skills. And I have a talk I do for business people. Great minds are not all the same. And one of the things I discuss is stuff we're not making anymore, like the structural glass wall, the Steve Jobs Theater for Apple. Things like the state-of-the-art electronic chip-making machine. It's based on research done here, but it's from Holland. And that goes back to taking out shop classes. Understand here in Pennsylvania they still have them. But there's other states where they don't have them. And we've got nobody to fix things. I've got a lot of equipment out in the industry, and one of my clients a year and a half ago had to replace the center tractor trainer system. You're going to look up these type of video tour with Temple Grandin. You want to see how it works. Well, it's now 30 years old, and the cattle got too fat to fit in it. And so it had to be replaced. They got ripped off 4 times the price by the one shop that's left. Because the problem is the little shops aren't forming. Like right now, if I want to build a pork processing plant or a poultry processing plant, and all the equipment's going to come from Holland. These we still know how to build. That's because one person, maybe 40 years ago, took a single FFA welding class. Started out with a little tiny shop. In fact, he built a tiny little cattle handling facility for our university back in like 1992, and now he's building beef plants. The little shop grew. What's happening is we're not forming the little shops. And there's a relationship here with special education. There's a lot of these visual thinkers that are autistic, I'm going to guess that about 20% of the people I work with go in big complicated stuff, with autistic, dyslexic, or ADHD. And if kids are not exposed to bullying things, how are they going to get interested in that? There's a lot of famous people that were probably autistic, like Einstein, for example, was speech till age 3 or 4 years old. He landed in an autism program today. We're not doing enough to develop skills. I want to talk a little bit about the different kinds of minds. I discuss it in my visual thinking book called Visual Thinking. Amazon's getting ready to ship right now. I am a shameless bookseller. There's a lot of information out there. It's called Visual Thinking. Title of the book. And there's 3 basic ways that people think. And when you get somebody who's autistic or dyslexic, you might get an extreme visual thinker or you get an extreme mathematician. And there are different ways of thinking. Visual thinkers, my memory is like little phone pictures. And my mind takes pictures of things that interest me. And so I can understand how the cow behaves. And one of the first things I did in cow behavior is I got down in the shoes to see what the cow was seeing. And they'd stop at shadows. They'd stop at reflections. They'd stop at seeing a vehicle parked alongside of the soil. And I didn't know when I was in my 20s that other people didn't think in pictures. I thought everybody did. And people thought I was crazy getting down in the shoes to see what cattle was seeing. So the object visual, that's a scientific name for my kind of thinking, they're going to be good with animals, because animals live in a sensory-based world. Good at mechanical, anything mechanical. Also art and photography. So art and mechanics tend to go together. And when I was a kid, my ability in art was always encouraged. Now another kind of mind is the visual spatial. This is your math pattern thinker. Super good at math. Good at thinking in pictures. Math and music tend to go together. And one of the problems I had, I'm getting a degree in veterinary medicine, I couldn't do the math requirements. So I majored in psychology. And I had to take statistics, yes. Lots of tutoring. Lots and lots of tutoring. And I asked for help. And I found that a lot of the people, like the man, for example, that builds beef plants, he can't do algebra either. He's building beef plants. So what I figured out when I started getting involved with shopkeeping is there's 2 parts of engineering. There's what I call the clever engineers. These are the people that design all the mechanical equipment. Design, build, and patent mechanical devices. And then where you need your mathematical engineer, refrigeration systems, we never touch that stuff. The mathematicians have to work on that. But the thing is, you need both kinds of thinkers in order to build something like a food processing plant. And where we're losing out is on what I call the clever engineers. You look at this mess with the Boeing Starliner. I looked up the valves that would use the thruster units in the Boeing Starliner. It looks exactly like stuff I have put together myself. And as they put together sloppily, you're going to get little bits and pieces inside the tubes to plug up those little clusters. They're not going to work. Somebody didn't put those together. That something. I looked at the valve and I'm seeing it right now. I printed it out because Wikipedia had the vendor name down. I looked it up and you go, things like that I put them together myself. Well, that was a failed mission over sloppy stuff together. That's not very good. But we need, you see, a visualizer will see a solution to a problem, but they can also see a risk. Like, for example, if there was a laptop up here, I don't want to have this next to a laptop, because I can see the water spilling on the laptop. Now, my mind's associated, so now I'm seeing this airplane passenger while we're flying, taking a little plastic cup of water and putting it on his open laptop while we're flying. There's no way I would do that. One bump, that computer's ruined. You can also see a solution to a problem. You just see it. I'll give you a simple example. A lady lost her stroller, the airlines lost her stroller, so I immediately saw 2 kids in a blue Southwest Airlines wheelchair. Okay, and the Southwest Airlines wheelchair, it would have fallen out of the other wheelchair. You see, I just saw it. That's a very simple example of seeing a solution to a problem. But your visual thinkers like me, we're terrible at algebra because there's no way to visualize it. We're being screened out. in need it. So we have our math thinkers, they're getting the traditional engineering degrees, and then you've got what I call the clever engineers, who's going to keep water systems running, electrical systems running. And then, of course, we have word thinkers. And one of the problems with word thinkers is way too vague. Overgeneralization, way too vague. Like I used an example of vague regulation. I thought it was so stupid I couldn't believe it. A bunch of university professors wrote, is this artificial intelligence system sufficiently capable of being dangerous? I don't know what that means. All I know is we're going to have hacking tools on steroids. Yesterday, I got a message from Russia, the recognizing party country code, that about my PayPal account. Well, not, the Apple wallet or whatever it is. I don't even have one. Yeah, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So, how does my mind feel with that? I think we're going to have to protect critical infrastructure, electric power plants, water systems, refrigeration systems in factories against the hackers. And how am I going to do that? Go back to some old-fashioned controls that if a computer asks it to do something dangerous, like get too much pressure, or spin too fast, or get too hot, or get turned off. I've got to protect that infrastructure against the AI-powered hacking tools. No, it is going to be bad. And one of the big meatpacking plants got a ransomware attack, and they had to pay all kinds of money to get their scheduling records back for both shipping and receiving. And I asked them, did anybody think about the refrigeration system in that plant? Siemens controllers, very hackable. Yeah, those better not be online. Period. Period. Anybody that puts that stuff online needs to be fired. Period. I have to protect that system. Those hackers managed to erase the contact list of every iPhone that had that company's email address. That was just a year and a half ago. There's stuff going on right now. So that's visualizing risk. A lot of people are mixtures of the different kinds of minds. But we need all of those different kinds of minds because they have complementary skills. When I wrote my book, Visual Thinking, my writing, I get kind of disorganized, but Betsy, my co-writer, she smoothed it all out. So that's visual thinker and word thinker working together in making a leaf plant, for example. Some engineers do the mechanical equipment, but the grid engineer and the mathematicians do the refrigeration and make sure the roof isn't compliant. You need to have both. Get asked oftentimes, what's one of the most things that I've done that really helps the meat industry the most to improve. I have a lot of equipment out there. Did that in the 80s and the 90s. And one of the very discouraging things is people didn't operate it correctly. They tore it up and wrecked stuff. So I developed a very simple scoring system. I've got 5 journal articles explaining for evaluating meat packing plants. And you have to figure out what are the simple things to measure. What are the control points? Well, how many did you make unconscious first shot capture cold, cattle? You're hanging up on the line, you better be unconscious. Booming and vocalization scoring, electric fried use and falling. These are critical control points. And the trick to it is to figure out what are the important things to measure. Just like traffic. The most important things to measure would be drunk driving, speeding, stopping and running red light violations, will be a top 3, and seatbelts and probably texting. And if you enforce those top 5, you're going to get 95% of the safety. And so I was hired by McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's to implement this scoring system. And within 6 months, I saw more change than I've ever seen. They had to make their numbers. And the thing that I'm really proud of is that out of 74 McDonald's suppliers, only 3 had to go to center stuff. The rest of them were fixed with a lot of simple changes. Constant flooring, changing lighting, and the stair going in the dark. Just very, very simple things like that. And what really drove the change is big customers enforcing it. But I bent over backwards do what I call reverse conflict of interest. I was not shoving expensive equipment down the throat. trying to figure out how to make their existing equipment work. And except for 3 places, hopefully overloaded, we made it work. That was something that really was good. And now we've got a new problem. We're getting problems with beef cattle. Congestive heart failure, swollen hearts. I have a paper I've written on this. You can look up on problems with lameness, congestive heart failure. Have increased in beef ears and heifers. Find it online. You can type in simple Grandin congestive heart failure, you can find it. Now this is something that 10 or 15 years ago wouldn't have even ever crossed my mind as being a problem. So we got the slaughter plants working really great. Now we're bringing in crippled heart patients. And it seems to be some regional differences in this. It gets back to certain goals, spreading genetics around. But what we're doing is over-selecting just for rapid growth and for gigantic rivers. We'll see the traits that are linked to this. The incidence of swollen hearts in fed beef cattle, young fed beef cattle, is 20 to 24% in certain parts of the U.S. That's published data. Published. So, from a welfare standpoint, I'm very concerned about breeding. And I'm going to bash on the pets just as much as I'm bashing on the livestock. Breeding pugs and bulldogs that can't breathe. I was in London a month ago. I got to watch videotapes of the surgery for correcting a bulldog's breathing. They hack out the nostrils, then they go and cut all the flab out of the inside of the throat, and then the hack works. Why are we breeding an animal that has trouble with breathing? I've got problems. A pet animal or livestock animal, we need to be breeding functional animals. Just that simple. Walk, breathe. We've got more and more foot and leg problems. You see crossed toes like this in cattle, that's a genetic defect. Don't breed that. This shouldn't be breeding crossed toes. In fact, 3 different studies have shown, if you ask a dairy producer, estimate how many lame dairy cows you have. They will underestimate like half. That's what I call bad becoming normal. It's almost like they don't see it anymore. They get so used to seeing it that the mild cases of lameness are just looked at as normal, but they're not. And with the pugs and the bulldogs, I've had people say, well, that's normal for the breed. Now I saw a pug that maybe had a quarter of an inch more nose. He could breathe fine. In other words, you just back off just a little bit. I'm not saying you don't have a bulldog pug, but you just make it a little bit less extreme. And one of the big feed yards in Colorado that was breeding was called Beef Dairy, where you have a Holstein mother and an Angus bull sire making beef cattle. One of those feed yards traced the heart failure issue back with single sire. Got rid of the sire, and then the late stage fed stuff. You can look up scoring tools. And I sent a picture of a exhibit here where they're teaching people on the inside of the cattle. Please see a normal heart sitting on that table. Not a floated soccer ball. No, that is not normal. Now I just want to end up on the one thing about grazing. I've been in the cattle industry for 50 years. Now I'm really showing my age. I'm in my late 70s now. That's why I lean on the lectern backwards. So you're going to give me a lecture and I don't want to sit up and talk. And I wrote a paper on grazing because I got sick and tired of cattle being bashed for wrecking the environment with methane. Well, if you do grazing right, or you do cover cropping right in your grazing, you improve the land. It'll take 3 to 5 years to do it. I do have a paper called Grazing Cattle, Sheep, and Goats. It's an important part of the sustainable agricultural future. And I read a very interesting article just 2 days ago in a Grandin science journal about abandoned farms, mainly from overseas. And if it's in a forested part of the world, it goes back to forest. But if it's in the plains areas, the arid areas, it goes back to big, huge juniper bushes and scrubby things that are going to be fire dead. Because that's land that in the past was raised by great herds of bison. You know, we need to be grazing that land and managing it. Well, we've had some very bad fires. We lost 1,000 houses in Denver 2 years ago. There's a field next to those houses probably should have been grazed or mowed where it started. The Hawaii fires, I looked into that. There was tall grass, dead grass, 3 foot tall dead grass. Land in sugarcane fields that should have been mowed or grazed. And it wasn't. It was an invasive grass. I'm trying to find out what fires started in LA right now. But I think that grazing also is going to be very, very important for fire control. You just can't have all that dried up fuel. So let's put the methane into perspective. One of the journal articles was recommended the reference, and I looked it up. And what I discovered is that the great herds of bison, before Europeans came to North America, were putting out 85% of the methane that cattle are putting out now. We also have the garbage dumps, they're a big source, and wastewater treatment plants. This is where you can do some methane capture. Please say the Cargill Corporation does that on the lagoons, methane capture, and they use it to run the boilers. Saves about a third of their energy requirement. That's stuff that's very, very, very sustainable and stuff we need to be doing. But we have lands that need to be grazed. So, I've seen land in Arizona where they let the juniper bushes just take over, 10-foot high, dried up juniper bushes. That's a big fire that's going to happen. And there's a place for the grazing animal. And I want to emphasize doing, and I don't want to think I've worked 50 years with an animal we need to get rid of. And the more I'm learning about it, that it is kind of arid or arid plains, that land needs to be grazed. It won't go back to natural. Because natural originally, whether it's wildebeest in Africa or it was bison here, was raised when it was natural. Well, now we have to maintain. But about 20% of the shop people I work with building big stuff like cargo planes, with autistic, dyslexic, or ADHD. We need those skills. I just talked to a parent the other day, got an autistic student, and I think he should take shop classes. And where she's located, there's no place for her kid, 15-year-old kids, to take shop classes. And there's a tendency to kind of look at that as a lesser form of intelligence. I can tell you it's not. Well, we need classes and we need to make sure we don't take these things out of schools. And people ask me if I could do something to fix the schools, I'm going to put all the hands-on classes back in. Cooking, sewing, woodworking, welding, kitchen department, all of those things back in. Because this is where we have a huge labor shortage right now. I just read the day before yesterday's Wall Street Journal, you got all those white-collar managers that have laid off, they can't find work. Whether you're an auto mechanic or you're someone who can build things, you're going to find work instantly. The other thing I'm concerned about, I've talked about the visual thinkers, my kind of thinker, but we're not developing our math kids either. You've got little math kids that are often autistic. Maybe this fourth grader needs to take high school math, and they're not being moved ahead in math, they're turning into behavior problems. Well, they're getting in trouble. And we need to show them interesting things they can work on. Like take them over to the data center. Say, look at all these computers in this great big warehouse. You talk to ChatGPT, it eats up tons and tons of energy. You need to grow up and figure out how to make electronic circuits and use half the power. Because these data centers use a whole city's worth of power. That's the kind of stuff I'd like to get little math kids obsessed with. We're not developing our little math kids. They're getting shunted into special ed when they turn behavior problems. No, it would be very easy just to give them a laptop and let them do the high school math in the third grade classroom. I'm not suggesting putting them in high school, but let them do the high school math. China develops their little math kids. We're not developing them. Let's leave it at that.
What advice would you give to parents or young people who have someone or are someone who think differently than maybe mainstream?
Well, you want to mainstream as much as possible. You want to make sure that you get services where they need the services. I want to look at outcomes. I'm seeing too many people that we might be building things, getting addicted to video games. I'll tell you how to get the video games off, addicts off of it, car mechanics. It's been very successful.
slowly introducing car mechanics, and they find that's more interesting than the video games. These video games aren't becoming video game designers. The video game industry has now had massive layoffs. The pay is terrible. Going to the mechanical stuff. So video game ads tend to be mechanical stuff.
Besides cattle, what is your favorite livestock species to work with, and what lessons can we learn from these animals?
Well, patience. You train an animal for show. It's going to take time. You don't try to train it for a show. So I think these kinds of activities are really good for kids to get involved in.
And this question dovetails right into that. What do you think of the show industry in terms of how it affects ag education and the commercial livestock industry?
Well, some of the show animals are not normal market animals. And I'll tell you what I would do with the show. I really liked what I heard last night about the turkey show. It went very, very well. And you went and discussed the turkey checks, regular commercial turkey checks, and you had the kids raising them. I'd like to see that done with pigs and cattle. Just get some truckloads of nice feeder calves and then draw lots and pick them, raise a regular commercial calf. Some of these show animals, I've talked to people that take show rejects and they just raise them in the backyard. Well, not pigs. Just raise a regular animal like they do with the turkey show.
Next up, what is your favorite animal to work with and why?
Well, I really have fun with beef cattle. That's the animal I've worked with the most. People tend to like the animal that they've worked with the most. And there's some very good things with FFA. Kids with autism, I gave a talk at the National FFA Congress. 30,000 people in the stadium, that's kind of intimidating. And I just look right at the people in the front and go, hotel meeting room. That made it less intimidating. But things working with agriculture can be great things for kids who think differently. Also, an autistic person gets friends who share interests. When I was in high school, one of the few places I was not bullied, horseback activity. I showed horses, 4-H shows, friends who share interests. I cannot emphasize enough how important that is.
What is the best way to support a visual thinking child?
Lots of hands-on things, encourage all kinds of building things, making things. That's the kind of things that visual thinking kid wants to do. Math kids, they need to move ahead in math. And autistics tend to get fixated on stuff, and I don't want to get fixated on garbage that's online. Let's get fixated on showing the data center. And, let's run this thing on half power. Look at all the electric power coming into this thing. Run a whole state. Let's run it on half the power. That's a math kid's job. It's a visual thinker who can't do math. Realize what the math kid needs to be doing.
You talked about the value of grazing the landscape. What do you think of CAFOs, CAFOs, where animals are concentrated on bare land and all their feed is trucked in?
Well, there's also, I think you have to have some good large-scale commercial. There is some stuff that's going on that's bad. I'm not going to go into details because it's going on right now. It's not something 20 years ago. There's some very good large-scale commercial. You got Hatfield here. Clemens, I'll tell you, that's one of the better companies. Large-scale commercial, they are one of the better companies. There's some stuff going on in beef right now that I'm very concerned about, but I'm not going to bash it publicly right now. Or feedlot stuff. Let's go back and repeat some mistakes that were made in the 70s. Not a smart thing to do.
How do you deal with senses like unexpected noise?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about sensory oversensitivity. An autistic individual can often tolerate noise, like let's say a school bell or a vacuum cleaner, if they control the noise. They turn the noise on and off. That can help. Now, if you wear ear protectors all the time, the problem you're going to have with that is it makes the sound sensitivity worse. You can have them with you all the time, but don't wear them all the time. but the sensory issues are real. Another kind of sensory issue that a lot of people have, I'd say maybe 10% of everybody, is seeing flicker on LED lights. Get migraines from it. Room looks like a strobe light flashing on and off. And so people ask me, like, you're building a new school, let's not have LEDs that flicker. And the way that you can find them is photograph the room in slow motion video. And you'll find the LEDs that flicker. Those are some simple things. The other thing that can help, if someone says to me, now do this, long string of verbal instruction, it's hard for you to remember the sequence. Let me just have it in a written checklist format. The steps. Pilot's checklist point. Those are simple accommodations that can make a big difference.
I like those. I like those a lot. I have some questions out in front. Do you have questions? I think we have time for maybe 3 or 4 more questions. Do you see an importance of raising and preserving heritage livestock and their genetics?
Yes, you might need your genetics. I think it's important to save that genetics because as you breed for productivity, there's always a trade-off. You might be taking away from disease resistance. I like to look at genetic selection sort of like a national election. If I put everything into the economy, meat, milk, or eggs, I shortchange my infrastructure. That's why we're getting these heart problems, foot problems, dairy cows that don't breed. But I'm probably also stealing from the military, the immune function. All these things take energy. That's something that people don't understand until you get into a mess. This thing with congestive heart failure, it's regional, like I went up to Canada, the cattle were beautiful. The bulls that were closeted haven't gotten to Canada, at least in Western Canada. In other parts of the U.S., going to passion plant, 24% swollen hearts. That's completely disgusting. I can show you. You can just go on your phone and type in cattle congestive heart failure. There's a University of Nebraska sport that comes up on that. But we need to preserve that genetics. Because we might need it. No, we don't better not breed all the strength out of it. But there's always a trade-off. Everything takes energy. It's energy from the immune system. It's not free. Nothing's free.
Next question. What are your thoughts on small farms moving away from commercial livestock and raising more heritage breeds?
Well, it's a way to preserve heritage breeds. Also, don't try to make heritage breeds into regular cattle. I've seen people trying to breed really big highlands. For example, I don't think it's a good idea. But if they raise them and they preserve them, because we may need that genetics.
So bear with me, the handwriting's a little rough for me here. 4 state reps went to the Jimmy Carter viewing yesterday and noticed many farms along the way turning into townhouses. How will the state protect land for ag, not townhomes? I think this question is more for the state reps than for you, but do you have a comment on that?
Well, I've seen a lot of egg land turn into a lot of stuff. I'm also concerned about solar farms, where they're just covering up good land, the panels are too close together, they're too low to the ground. Sometimes they put weed killer underneath them. I think that's really bad. Panels need to be up higher so you can raise some sheep on them. So you can use that land that's under those solar panels. Also, solar panels need to be on the roofs of their houses. I got a picture right here on my phone. I got a special seat on Southwest Airlines so I can photograph final approach to San Diego. I was just disgusted at the lack of solar panels on the roofs of the warehouses coming in there. Let's put them with airport parking lots. Tucson's done that. Tucson's got great solar panel shade in their airport parking lot. That's where they belong. Now, the other problem with some of these solar farms is they're very, very bad contracts. If I was a farmer, I wouldn't do this. It's a 25-year contract. And then at the end of 25 years, the mess is yours. Now, how am I going to recycle? You better not cut the posts off at the ground, because you'll never use that land, because then you have to dig out every single one of those posts back. That's a total mess. The other thing, solar panels, is they do degrade. The thing that nobody wants to talk about, you take hail this big, They'll sit up and they didn't put stuff inside it. Like knock some of the power out of it. Nobody wants to talk about this. Those are placed for solar panels. But I don't really like some of these things where they're putting them in such a way that you cannot use the ground underneath. I know in France they build them up really high and they put them apart and they grow crops on them. So that's more of the kinds of things that should be done. There's just way too much short-term stuff.
Our final question, and I think this is a great way to end. At Del Valle University, we invite certain professors to a, quote, last lecture event, where we ask them, if you were given the last lecture of your career, what would it be on? And then they have the opportunity to give that lecture. So if you were asked to do that, what would your last lecture be on?
Well, I think I would talk about the different kinds of thinking. The visual thinkers, math thinkers, the word thinkers, and during COVID, Betsy Lerner and I did the book on visual thinking. We meet the different kinds of minds, they bring different skills in, I talk about that. And another thing I talk about is the thing of older animals having wisdom. 10 years ago, I cut an article out of Science magazine about old whales that were past reproductive stage, but they were valued because when the salmon got scarce, the old ladies knew where to find the salmon. They had wisdom. This has been true for matriarch. Oh, other animals. What's called the old wise animals. Well, I just think I'm old now, and I'd like to help pass knowledge on to young people because they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. That's also pass knowledge on to young people because they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. That's also pass knowledge on to young people because they're going to be the leaders of tomorrow. That's always fascinating. Have more accurate migration because they have the knowledge. That really turned me on. Well, I'm going to be around all the rest of today, and I'm doing some other discussion, I think, too.
Well, we thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us. We are all better for it. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me.